This is New England Soccer Weekly with Tom Quinlan, Nick Giuliano, and Mike DeSilva on 790 The Score.
Win that you got on Saturday night versus Nashville, a team that hasn't conceded a goal all season long. They come into Fortress Foxborough, and you know what? Maybe you're starting to feel those new spring vibes. There's a new smell in the air. There's a new feeling in the air. And you did it for 90 minutes without Carlos Hill.
Yeah.
That's, you know what, a testament to this team that, as we'll talk about in a couple minutes here, wouldn't have been able to do this last year. Welcome on into New England Soccer Weekly. I'm the idiot in the blue shirt, Tom Quinlan, Nick Giuliano in the hat, well, the gray hat, and Mike DeSilva in the old school Santos jersey.
Yes, that's right. This is this was their Centurion jersey. They're celebrating 100 years back in 2011, I think it is.
You know what's going to be tough?
2012.
You know what's going to be tough for Tom now that we are doing this on YouTube,
What?
and shout out to everybody that's watching every single week, is that you can go back and watch last week's episode when it was all doom and gloom because they lost 4-0 in L.A., and now everything is great.
And
because
we're wearing bright shirts, and it's great.
Look at that.
And I got Neymar Jr. on the
You'll
back.
love to see it.
Well, clearly you didn't listen close enough because what I said was to Lori Lindsay, who we appreciate joining us and loved talking to her last week, was
She was awesome.
that game against LAFC was not representative of who this New England Revolution team is. Now, I think you would have been happy to get away with a point on last Saturday night, going into the game knowing that you're probably not going to have Carlos, but to walk away with all three, to do it in a gritty way, an old school MLS way, Bruce Arena way, I think is a really good sign. Even though, there's plenty of things to fix here. It's still early in the season. But it's it's a really good win for a team that was not doing this early last year.
It's a good point, and we'll break it down. But to your point as well about last year, it wasn't a great season, and there was a lot of things that went wrong, and there's a lot of question marks that we and everybody out there had coming into the season. But 4 games in, 9 points, 3 wins, all of those wins, not a goal conceded, not a bad start.
Yeah, definitely not a bad start. And, we're going to get to, we have a clip that we're going to use here in a second with Bruce speaking to the team in the locker room after the game, having the same ideas, same sentiment that we have right now, which is that this is a team that has now through 4 games continuously done things that they could not do last year. We just didn't see it all year. We waited for it to click, right? We gave them a ton of leeway when it came to, it's still got this much time. You still got this much time. But at the end of the day, they never turned it around. It's good to see them have, hard-fought wins like they did this past weekend. Bouncing back, there is a huge mental aspect to being a professional athlete in going on the road, traveling across the country, and losing 4-0, getting embarrassed, being the only game at that time for the MLS. It's huge to come back and see them bounce back the way that they did. You got to feel pretty good about what you saw.
And to what Tom said, too, going into that Nashville game knowing that you don't have Carlos Hill to bounce back and have a performance like that. Pretty good.
And it goes to show.
Look at Tom.
Too,
he's actually, there's some positivity. There's some good energy coming from him.
But the
right
thing
now.
is, though, he has a you-know-what eating grin on his face that I'm waiting. He's waiting for us to stop speaking. But before he gets to whatever point he's conjuring in his brain right now.
You want to know what I'm laughing? Because these new chairs, I squeezed a little bit, I moved the wrong way, and I think it's going to be picked up on the mics where it sounds like I farted.
Oh, very good.
So,
well, there you go.
You know what they say, though.
These new chairs.
You know what they say. If
you're addressing it, it's because you're trying. You don't want to be like the next viral clip of
maybe we do.
Or maybe we do.
Anyways, that's wwhy my grin's there. I'll tell you what.
Somebody's going to timestamp it out there.
Yeah.
There's nothing.
Maybe I will.
You'll see it when you see my grin pop up. Anyways, before we get to just recapping the overall, yes, they don't do this last year. What a hell of a goal by Gustavo Bo. If you needed to, because we talked about it after the game about where he is, and because he didn't join this team automatically to start the year. He comes in from Argentina, misses all of preseason, misses the first 2 games of the year. then, he gets introduced in a hell of a way versus LAFC.
In a position that he did
got
not look
thrown
that
into the
comfortable
fire.
in either.
And
yeah.
we talked about this last week. He got thrown into that situation.
Playing in a position that he doesn't belong in, by the way.
He does not belong at the number 10 spot anymore.
And you can see in the coaching staff made that adjustment very quickly.
And he even said it. Like,
sure.
listen, I'm not comfortable in that position. He said it. Gustavo Bo doesn't talk much to the media, but when he does, it's always a good soundbite. And the thing that stuck out was, hey, put me in a position I'm comfortable in because I'm going to produce for you.
Well, about that goal, there were so many things that he did right, and he did it pretty much all himself. He took his space. He had like 3 defenders on him. And then when you're on an angle like that, as a forward, you're taught to shoot high to the near, low to the far. Go back and watch that clip. It was the epitome of shooting high to the near. Goalie had no shot. It's 1-0 against a very stout defense. We talked about it with Lori Lindsay last week. A defense that hadn't conceded a goal, a defense that we know packs it in to try to get that tie or get that counter goal. The Revolution really took Nashville, a very good Nashville team, out of their game for 90 minutes, again, without their best player.
Gary Smith said it at the end of the game to the media on Saturday night that, the Revs just came out better in the first 10 to 15 minutes. Like, they were just overall the better team that put Nashville on the back foot. Nashville couldn't really get into a rhythm. Like, if you go back and watch, not to hammer home this game too much, because we're a week removed from it now, but it was really impressive. It just because I guess it's so hard not to do this comparison, but you look last year to this year, the Revs took over that game pretty quickly.
Yeah.
They pinned Nashville deep in their defensive zone, a couple of chances early. Bobby Wood looks great. We'll get to him as a side note in a minute, but there was a certain type of aggression that you just see from this team right now that it's really impressive that they were able to do this and throw off a Nashville team that I would argue is probably going to be on the top half of the Eastern Conference. They're going to be a playoff team this year. So it's a real testament to, I think, an evolution of where this offense is going. I don't think it's perfect yet. I think Latif Blessing adds a hell of a lot. He opens up guys to be able to do more. Barrero, I think, did a very, very good job.
We're still
Bruce said it was his best game, I think it was, of the year.
And we're still not seeing the best of these players yet because we're only 4 games in. But I think for the fans out there and for the team coming off of what happened last year, I'm going to use it again, it feels pretty good right now, and it should.
And to me, the biggest thing is seeing that the moves that were made in the offseason so far have looked really good. They've looked like they were the correct decisions that were made, as opposed to last year. We already knew kind of at this point that whatever it was
you two were out a month in. I wasn't out a month in, but you two are definitely out a month in.
No, I absolutely was, and I just, to me, what I'm seeing so far, and I love that going into the season, we kind of, well, Tommy, you were on this about Bobby Wood, kind of being that guy that feels like he still has something to prove. I think that him being on this team is huge, especially if Vrioni is a guy that doesn't end up working out, which, again, I'm not saying he won't. It's still way too early for that. But I'm just saying, if he is somebody that doesn't get into a groove, who doesn't get going as a goal scorer, as a striker for this team, Bobby Wood, man, he doesn't really have to do much when he has some of these guys playing behind him that can create opportunities for him. He's a goal scorer. He knows his way around. He's the kind of guy you want up top because he knows his way around the net and he puts himself in good spots.
Works
and he
hard.
can finish. And he works hard.
And guys like, Gustavo Bo, Dylan Barrero, Carlos, they're going to find Bobby. Bobby's got such a great intuition for the game. He's played overseas. He's a national team player. He's one of the. I mean, he's really one of the stronger, resume-built guys on this team right now. I mean, obviously, he went through his trials and tribulations over the years, but if you can get him into a groove, we talked about it with Kaylyn Carr a couple of weeks ago. Like, we kind of foreshadowed this a little bit. This is maybe, a gem that you were able to find here, a diamond in the rough, if you will, in the offseason. You look at the Bobby Wood signing originally, and people just go back and say, oh, it's another Josie.
Yeah. Well, I mean...
And technically, I mean,
you couldn't really
it
blame
was.
them. I mean, in a way, because until you see some type of production, you're going based off of what you saw in the past.
It has been solid for Bobby Wood, but
he just seems to be in the right place at the right time.
And
you can go back to the Dynamo game.
That's a good thing about a forward because you can't teach that.
Right.
Yeah, you have to have a knack for it.
I also, again, I'm going to do this just like I did with books. Giacomo Vrioni still has a lot of room to grow, still has a lot to prove. When he's on the field, when he got brought in again, he did some really good things that you like to see from a forward. So, the negativity from you towards him, I still don't
It's
get.
not negative.
I mean,
it's
it
not
really
negative.
is. You're telling
you're a designated player. There's a standard that you should be held up to. I'm sorry, that's just the way.
All
it
right,
is.
well, can we see? It's the middle button on the right hand side there, Tommy. Why don't we see what Bruce thinks?
You haven't used the magic box too much.
It's
on the
been
show.
Because whatever. We're not going to get into that. The magic box is back.
He waited till
we're back in Tom's box.
You know what? He waited till the end to take a shot at you last week, and now we're not even done with the first segment.
All right,
10 minutes in.
That's fine.
We
That's
should
okay.
have Tom set this up next week.
Yeah,
and see how that goes.
Tom. Why don't you come in here next time and set all these clips
Yeah.
up? Anyways, middle button on the right, Tom. Let's go
Thank you,
back
sir.
to Tom's magic box.
Well, here's the thing. So Bruce talked about after the game, obviously the question comes up, third straight game that Giacomo Vrioni doesn't start. Bruce tells Sam Mitten of the Blazing Musket he still needs time to get up to speed here. He still has to catch up. He's missed the full
Which
season.
I'm
blah, blah,
fine
blah,
with,
blah, blah,
by the
blah,
way.
blah, blah, blah,
You can
blah,
see
blah,
that
blah,
coming
blah,
off an
blah, blah,
injury,
blah, 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 blah.
new player. Go ahead.
How far away is he, do you think, for you to start him again? How far away?
Why is this a topic?
He's a designated player, you know? I mean, it's one of
He's a player. He's a player. Every player earns a position on the field. There's no given positions based on your classification.
There's no given positions. You're
Tom,
an idiot.
he basically
just because I'm the
took-
head coach of the team doesn't mean I'm actually coaching the team.
No, stop
Charlie
it.
Joseph
Stop.
could
Leave
actually
him
be
alone.
coaching the team.
Listen, you're not going to get invited to Thanksgiving at the arenas this year.
I'm just saying, he knows that's a bunch of BS, that answer.
No,
he's one of the
only
higher
took
paid
4
guys
games
on the
for
team.
Tom
All
to
I
go
asked
at
him
the
was a
coach.
simple question. Simple question.
Well,
He did
the thing
not want
is,
to answer that question.
Well,
How
Tom,
far away is Giacomo
Tom,
Vrioni from starting again? He started the first game of the season. You haven't seen him start since.
But you put the emphasis on the designated player. You're the only
He
person
goes,
That's-
he asked
that's
why
that
it.
is it
emphasizes that
You did
time
that.
in and time
You
out.
did that in your question.
What are you paying for?
The point is that he doesn't put more emphasis on these designated players, and I think that that's the correct coaching move. You don't force
You
guys
gave him
into
an
the
out
lineup.
when
I
you
agree with
said
that.
when
That-
you
no, no,
said
no,
that.
I agree with.
This
That
isn't
I
a
agree with.
college
gave him an out.
scholarship.
No, I understand that. I understand that. But here's the thing. There's two ways to look at this. It's what you just said, which I think is true. Just because Giacomo Vrioni is a designated player doesn't mean he fits into this lineup right now. He just doesn't. They're
And that's
doing
what he
well
said.
without it. But at the same time, there's the other side of that coin is, well, he's probably top 2 or 3 highest paid players on the team right now. Why isn't he out there week in and week out?
He's not ready.
That's a bad sign. I don't
For
care.
who?
You're a professional athlete. This is not college.
But he's coming
sports where
back
you're a
from an
redshirt
injury.
freshman.
He's coming back from an injury. Bruce has
How many months
emphasized,
did we have? The season ended last year in what, October?
and he didn't. How many games did he play?
Didn't play.
5.
Okay. And when did he sign with the team? In July?
Late July. He was here in early August.
Okay.
And you have
So-
to throw last season out because that's
team was
not
a mess.
Exactly.
But at the same time,
And if these designated player spots were so valuable and they meant so much to the team, then why is it that they're not capable of signing some of the Gareth Bales? They're not. They're going
Gillette
to find.
Stadium.
They're trying to find these quote unquote diamonds in the rough.
and they did it with Buxa.
And they did it with Buxa, and guess what? That took time. I
just
was
saying.
against him. I was
You
against
both
Buxa.
were. You did, Tom. I said this last week.
And he proved us wrong.
It's like Groundhog Day, and I'm not saying these two players are going to be comparable at the end of their time here, but you did, your same verbiage, the same exact thing you're doing now with Vrioni, you did with Buxa. Same. It's like a playbook.
But Buxa was playing.
But
That's
now
the
we're going to
difference.
have the
but he was
videos to
injured,
chop
and
up
he
and
came
put
back
together.
and he got benched, and you did the same thing. He got benched, and you said, "Why isn't he starting?"
Well, different. All right.
It's not different. It's the same exact thing.
It's kind of different.
Well, we don't know if it's going to be.
You don't know.
First of all, it's the same thing because you put again at that moment we're putting the super emphasis on this designated player spot.
That you spend a lot.
But the thing is, here it's a spot that needs to be filled regardless. So they went and did their due diligence. If that player is not fit, regardless of what you spent when you purchased him or when you went and signed him, right? If that player does not fit or is not fit, then he does not belong on the field. You don't force people on the field because of what you paid for them. The situation is what it is.
That's what the coach said.
I already stipulated to. I agree with that. You can't just force Giacomo on the field. At the same time, there is something that needs to be said that you can't even get your 23, 24-year-old stud that you brought over from Austria onto the field right now in the first couple of weeks of the season, it's just not acceptable. I'm sorry.
Whether I agree or not,
he's very close to being Jerry Bengtson. I'm just saying. It could be Jerry Bengtson 2.0.
Well, we don't know what he's going to be yet, and I think that it's way too early. And honestly, if this was a team that was 0-4, maybe I'd have more questions about it.
No, they're not.
But at the end of the day, Giacomo Vrioni being a designated player and not being in the starting lineup and not getting playing time, it doesn't bother me in the slightest. I haven't lost any sleep over it.
And when he
you
comes,
shouldn't as a Revs fan.
And like I've said before, Tom, when he comes in the game, just like with Buxa, there are things that he's doing that are good. You could see what the Revolution saw in him. He's not putting it all together. He's not starting. We haven't seen a full 90 yet. But you look at the way that he plays with his back towards the goal.
Yes.
The hold-up play, the ability to find somebody else. He's another player like Bobby Wood that when he's in there, he's in the right positions.
And like Adam Buxa was.
Exactly.
Minus the
so you
got
to give him. I know you don't like it. I know some of you out there don't like it. But that's what happens over the course of a 6-month season. You have to let this guy grow.
Well, you know what? They play against DC United this weekend, and I don't think DC United is a great team. They'll probably be at the bottom half of the Eastern Conference this year. So if there's any time to, maybe get Giacomo's feet wet, probably this weekend on the road at Outfield. Again, you're playing against a bad team.
Sure, but why?
Because it's not Nashville. I think there's more pressure to...
But you just said he should have been out there against L.A., who's the best team.
I didn't say you should have been out there against LA. I'm saying it's not good that you're a designated player that you spend a lot of money for and he occupies a very premium spot is not starting. Anyways, just move on because I
love this show. This show 3-1 to start the year. No one thought the Revs would be there.
And we're talking about a position on a salary.
On a player who's not even doing that poorly right now.
Bruce did point out that the last 10 minutes of the game was something that they needed to go over this week in training. He said that in a post-game team speech. We'll get to that in a second.
It was an onslaught, which is what happens when it's 1-0 at the end of the game. You have to play way more defensively. In Nashville, when you have a player like Mukhtar, and we saw it live, I mean, the guy's that's why he's world class. He can do it.
Final 15 minutes of the game, Nashville outpossessed the Revs 76-21. They had 5 shots on net and 6 corners. Final 15 minutes.
The last one, the other first 2 stats or whatever. That's the one that is troubling to me. That amount of corners with a team that we talked about going into it with Mukhtar, who's so dangerous on a free kick. You can't do that.
Well, and that's where Bruce was talking about. This team was playing too negative and allowing Nashville really to pin them so far back where they almost tied it a couple times. We're sitting up in the press box going, it's hold on to your butts times. So, I'm sorry, the screen just blinked.
I know, just let it go.
Yeah, just let it go. Things are still happening.
Here's what Bruce said after the game.
Really good win. Last year we don't get 3 points. It's 0 points or 1 point in those games. So that's great stuff. We got to talk about how we dealt with the last 10 minutes of the game, right? I think we were way too negative. We have to sort that out. We'll probably have to go over that in training during the week. But a great effort. You came back from a bad defeat in L.A. So after 4 games, you got 9 points. That's pretty damn good, all right? Well done. Congratulations. We'll see everyone on Tuesday, okay?
Social media sites.
Twitter.
So that was couldn't have been a more true statement. Last year, in the final 15 minutes of a game, the Revs conceded 34% of their goals. Mm-hmm. So in the final 15 minutes of games last year, 34% of goals that the Revs conceded were in the final 15 minutes. And now here's where and there's 2 ways to look at that. One, Matt Turner being out for as long as he was out. You're playing with Brad Knight and Earl Edwards Jr. Not great. Second thing, is it time to move on from Andrew Farrell? Yes, he did just sign a extension, but is Romney just the better answer? Do you really want to break up that back 4? Is there anybody that you want to take out of this lineup right now? Even Noel Buck is performing to where, it makes it a hard decision to take him out so you can go 3 in the back, and play with that idea. I don't know if Andrew Farrell fits into this lineup right now, unfortunately. I like Andrew a lot. I'm happy he got his extension, he got his money, but in terms of talk about guys that fit, this back 4 is flawless right now.
And here's the thing. We debated for a month coming into this season how we would want the back 4 or 5 or 3 to look, but this is what happens. You got to let your eyeball. It's the eyeball test. What do you see in front of you? 3 out of 4 games clean sheet. 3 out of 4 games. Really, I mean, Nashville did test Petro the most outside of LA, but not any real chances. You got to let those guys roll.
And to be fair, too, to Andrew, Omar is probably more responsible for some of those losses last year. John
I
Bell.
think that was an unveiled shot. But let's go. Let's go with what you did. That's a good point to bring up, though, because I was someone who I would have played Farrell when he came back.
Yeah.
But now I've seen enough. You've seen 4 games. You've seen what these guys look like back there and how they're gelling this quickly. You don't want to break that up.
And I think that if you're Andrew Farrell, you kind of see that too. And this is not to say that he's not somebody that can step in maybe in a month or 2 from now. You need to change things up. Maybe you do. We've mentioned it many times, I think every week now. Maybe you look at the 3 center backs, or maybe.
But this is that depth piece that Tom has talked about forever that they don't have. That this is, I know it's not great for Andrew Farrell because he's going to lose minutes,
right? And it makes it tough.
It's a good problem to have.
It kind of seems like this is the defense that's working right now.
Sure, but
you ever use a microphone before, pal? Sorry,
but with Andrew Farrell, this is that depth that you and some of these fans want that they didn't have before. If Kessler, if Romney, if DeJuan Jones or Brandon Bite goes down for whatever reason or isn't playing that well, this is a great sub to have off the bench. There's not too many teams in MLS that have a player of this caliber just sitting on the bench that can come in defensively.
And, I mean, he's also a guy that if down the stretch you need to start him for a few games.
By the way, we could be wrong. They could go with 3 in the back on Saturday.
Let me just expand on it more. I'm not blaming him for a lot of those losses in the final 15 minutes last year, but the defense has changed.
I think it was a lack of depth. Let's call it what it was. Yeah. Lack of depth. Kessler was not healthy. He was not fit last year.
Was not healthy.
Farrell was basically the one consistency in the back last year, in the center back position. And the guys that filled in, just weren't up to par. And it was just a mess all around.
It's really interesting, though, to look at it. And we don't want to go back to last year. But when Tom reads that stat, and then you think about sports and the mentality of sports, this could have been, if they could have held on, right, and it was the opposite, this could have been a great team last year, too.
Yeah.
They just couldn't finish.
I mean, it should have been, realistically. Yeah. I mean, it was kind of an unprecedented fall off,
absolutely,
from 2021 to not making the playoffs.
Well, and that's
in a league that basically everybody makes the playoffs.
But it was there. They just didn't finish the game in so many different games. Yeah, tough.
Now I'll give you one more stat. The Revs didn't get their second win until April 16th last year.
Wow,
and they didn't get their third win until April 30th last year.
All right, well we're a month in advance here. Beautiful thing.
Completely different season. We'll be back with more New England Soccer Weekly after this. We'll be talking with Kaylyn Kyle today from MLS Season Pass and the MLS 360 show on the app, and it's been great, so we can't wait to talk about that on Apple. And we also have Arsenal coming to take on MLS's All-Stars later in the summer. So.
We know a guy that plays for them.
Could it be a Turner Petro face-off?
If Petro's even here.
It was almost like Ohtani and Trout.
Right?
That would be good.
Woo.
Back with more after this. All right, MLS 360's Kaylyn Kyle joining us on New England Soccer Weekly. Welcome back to the program. Kaylyn Kyle, how are you, ma'am? Thank you so much for joining us.
I'm good. I like that you're calling me ma'am. I feel like that's aged me about 25 years. I'm feeling good. It's sunny in New Jersey.
I did that to one of our coworkers. I did it to Becky yesterday.
Yeah,
she wanted to kill me.
Kaylyn, we want to apologize. Tom doesn't really learn.
He also doesn't speak for the other two of us.
He works from a studio where he's sitting by himself with his shoes off for like 4 hours.
Yep.
So we do apologize for that.
There's a huge water jug that's just for him.
The demographic of my daytime audience is 60+. I'm sorry, Kaylyn. How is the how is the studio show going for you guys this year? I absolutely love watching it every week. I think it's absolutely great that MLS has gone this road.
It's good. I mean, obviously, I know that I work for them, but even if I didn't work for Major League Soccer, the amount of resources and money and everything that both Apple and Major League Soccer have put in, the talent that they brought in. I mean, they did their due diligence with people that they hired who would work well together, the knowledge that they have on the game, the experience they have on the game. So, I mean, just speaking of our MLS 360 show, I'm so lucky. I mean, obviously I'm working with Bradley Wright Phillips, Liam McCune, and then obviously Sasha Kleshkin. We screw up his last name, so he always hammers me on that. I was calling him Sash for a while. He's like, stop calling me Sash. And I'm like, well, I genuinely can't pronounce your name yet. It's like a tongue twister. So the Panthers good. Obviously week 1 was learning everything, how we wanted the show, because we didn't know what we wanted, what would work, what didn't work. And, you know, listening to the fans of what they kind of wanted to see, we've kind of made it into our own, which is really, really cool. So it's not only our own show, but like we've made it into what the fans want to see as well. So I think that's pretty special, because I don't think there's a lot of programs out there in the world that, you know, take so much on board of what their fans had said, what they've written, just to show kind of what they've wanted to see. So it's been honestly incredible. I'm so grateful for to be able to work with Major League Soccer. I've obviously grew up in the Academy of Vancouver Whitecaps, so Major League Soccer has always been near and dear to my heart. My father-in-law is the coach for Minnesota United. My husband used to play in the league. So yeah, I'm truly, truly grateful, and it's really cool to see how the league has progressed throughout the seasons and throughout the years.
Yeah, you mentioned the personalities. We've been fortunate to have a bunch of Apple personalities on our show so far. Go more into your week-to-week, though, with your new cast, because, again, it's almost like coming onto a new team where you have new teammates and you're just getting better every week doing your show, right?
Yeah, it's weird. Like, honestly, I feel like I've known these guys forever, and that's not always the case when you work in this industry. Sometimes you work with people that, you know, maybe you don't see eye to eye, but it honestly feels like I've been friends with them since, like, we were teenagers. I know that sounds so bizarre to say, but my husband was the one that said it to me. He's like, oh, like, Sasha and Bradley are unbelievable guys, like, super down to earth. And it's weird because in this industry, when you meet a bunch of professional players, sometimes you get, you know, the big heads, or I've done this, I've been there, I've seen this. And those two, literally, it's like they talk as if, and I don't mean this in a disrespectful way, that they haven't played at the highest level, that they weren't MLS All-Stars, that they weren't, you know, playing at some of the biggest clubs in England. Like, it's so bizarre to me. Like, it's genuinely like, on a Sunday, you're sitting down with a group of friends, you can joke around, and, like, they hammer me when I get stuff wrong, or I mispronounce something, or I say something that's absolutely outrageous, or if they do as well. I don't know. It feels like such a good team, and it's such a good chemistry. Obviously, Kristen was the one that put us all together. She was hired by Major League Soccer and IMG to put the talent together. So I don't know how she's done it, but she's literally nailed it. And yeah, we're only getting better week in and week out. So it's nice to hear you guys say that, because that's how we feel as well when we watch it back. We're like, oh, that was our best show yet. So we kind of sound like broken records with that, but genuinely we feel like it's getting better week in and week out.
Yeah, and you know, Kaylyn, we understand and we appreciate you taking time for us today. We know we don't have a ton of time, but I do want to get to, we've had on Kaylyn Carr. Last week we had on Lori Lindsay, who we've had a ton of fun with. And our first guest from the MLS Season Pass was Lloyd Sam. And last week, Lori told us that she's very envious of Lloyd Sam's closet and that he has some really good fashion. So now you guys all look so good when you guys are are doing a show. Who would you say? How would you rank fashion as far as the people you're doing your show with? Everybody on the cast.
Well,
who has the best style?
Obviously, myself. Myself number one. There's like no competition with that. I would say Sasha would be 2 for sure. Bradley's 3. Liam is like just very clean cut all the time. You kind of know what you're getting. It's always like a blue suit, a black suit, but he always looks great. He's always well put together. We do need to get him a new pair of shoes because he's worn the same shoes every single week. So Sasha's obviously sponsored by Adidas and has been since he was a player, but he seems to be forgetting about me and Liam just bringing Bradley shoes every other week. So we wrote to Adidas in New York saying, look, you guys need to take care of me and Liam because Sasha is not taking care of us at the moment. But no, everyone has an amazing sense of fashion. And I think that's what's fun as well is, former player now in studio, you kind of get to make it your own. And that's the great thing about MLS 360 is it's not like suit and tie so you can't breathe and dress shoes. It's really like a cool suit with like some Adidas trainers or whatever you want to make it. So it's been a lot of fun. And yeah, except for the 1 week, we literally all wore the same shade of beige. We looked like absolute idiots. Our stage manager had to run out and get Bradley a new top because we looked absolutely ridiculous.
He's like, you're coming from a gold member party.
Kaylyn,
no, seriously, it was so bad.
Kaylyn, Kyle, next time you come on, we'll have to talk about hunting in Saskatoon, okay?
Please don't. Don't remind me.
I think we've got to talk about Taylor Swift, too. If you look at Kaylyn's timeline on Twitter, it's soccer and Taylor Swift, soccer and Taylor Swift. So I don't know which she likes more.
Yeah, definitely not hunting. We just learned that.
Yeah, no. I like my animals too much for hunting. So
We appreciate the time, Kaylyn. Good luck this weekend. We look forward to catching you up down the line, seriously. And we'll look forward to talk more about how everything's going on with MLS 360. MLS season passes. Kaylyn Kyle joining us on New England Soccer Weekly this week. Kaylyn, thanks.
Thank you guys so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
All right, New England Soccer Weekly rolls along here. Welcome on back in. Mike, Tom, and Nick with you. We got Kaylyn Kyle coming up a little bit later on the show. The Revs take on DC United this weekend. Will you have Carlos Heel back? I don't know. I don't know if this necessarily feels like a game you need to bring Carlos Heel back for. DC United coming off of a loss of their own this past weekend to New York City FC at Yankee Stadium, which Nick was kvetching about in our group chat, which I get it.
The field is just, I mean, I can't believe
it is weird
that we still are
it's
doing
10 years
this.
into this thing. It's unbelievable that it's gone this way.
I can't believe that a professional team plays on a field like that.
And we also need to make note of the fact that Tom really likes the food there in the press box.
Yeah, it was a weird text back as I was complaining
That was his
about
response.
the field, but that he talked about the press box food, which
it's 5-star catering. I mean, when you come down with me to New York City FC one day, because I would like you guys to go see what it's like to experience a game there.
I don't know if I want to watch on that field. That's
it's
not,
just
that
an experience. It's more so just the experience of being at Yankee Stadium. We'll never see it again in our lifetimes. It's like when they played baseball at the Polo Grounds. That was not a baseball stadium, the Polo Grounds. It was the ugliest piece of architecture
it was
anywhere.
like 700 feet or to center field or whatever the hell it was.
Exactly.
And only like 150 to right field. So
you'll never experience anything like it ever again in your lifetime. So while you have a moment in this moment in time to go out and see this, I think you should.
Well, field aside, and Kaylyn Carr actually made this statement on the broadcast. He was calling it for Apple that this is a different DC team. Yes, this is a team that only has one win. This is a win, by the way, that they came back to beat Toronto FC. They came back to have a tie 2 weeks ago. They almost came back in this game against NYCFC. So the Revolution, while they're the better team, this DC United team, watching them, has a lot of parallels to Houston, where they're very susceptible in the back. They make a lot of mistakes in the back, so the Revs definitely need to press forward and wait for those mistakes. But this is a DC team, unlike that Houston team, that's been in every single game so far.
It's definitely not going to be like the Houston game, but I still think you're better than DC.
That's what I just said.
Right.
But also you can't go in. These are the games where you're susceptible to losses, mentally speaking, because you think that, you know that, and then the opposite happens.
You never – it's in every sport. It doesn't matter what level. Teams tend to play to their competition. It's a mental thing. I don't know what it is. Yes, on paper, this is a Revolution team that should absolutely win against DC United. But some of those teams that are not great but stick around in games or refuse to kind of sit back and just accept a loss are sometimes the worst teams to play than somebody that you kind of expect to be going at it for 90 minutes with, because there is a mental aspect of kind of taking your foot off the gas pedal a little bit, and you can't do that against a team like this.
And there's a few reasons why. One, I mean, Wayne Rooney is starting to come into his own a little bit more as a manager. He has a season under his belt. Kaylyn Carr also mentioned this on the broadcast, where the substitutions he made, he pulled a Mike D, by the way.
Yeah.
3 substitutions at halftime.
Let's go.
For Wayne Rooney.
Halftime adjustments.
And they scored, Benteke scored about a minute or two into the second half. There was a huge momentum shift. All of the moves that Wayne Rooney made in the second half really worked in DC's favor. And I mentioned Christian Benteke. I mean, this is a world-class player, a player also that we know played in England, scored 1 million goals over there. So this back four with Petro, they've done a great job through 3 games. They've allowed no goals, but this is a player that they're going to have to watch out for.
How do you line up this weekend against DC United? I think you got to play with 2 up top. I think you go 4-4-2, right? I
think you go with what worked last week.
Yeah, I think you got to, especially this doesn't feel like a game you have to rush Carlos back for.
I agree, and this lines up also well because NYCFC's their success was really on the left side. I think I remember 42% of their possession really worked.
You, Mr. Stats guy.
This guy does his research.
Really worked in the first half on that left side, so this could be a big game. Oh, except he's not playing Dylan Barrero. So who are we going to be out? Who's going to be out there?
That's right.
on the left
Barrero's
side?
on national
Barrero
team
and
video with
McCoon
Colombia
right.
and South Korea.
And shout out to them. That's amazing.
Yes.
Called up for Colombia. But, yeah, so whoever is playing on that left side could have a game because this is where DC United looks to be most susceptible. And, again, I'll say this. If you go back and watch that game, a lot of mistakes made in the back by DC
Maybe it's DeJuan
United.
Jones.
Well,
not playing out on the left wing, but maybe he's the guy
Could have a
attacking
game.
that left flank, that left wing there, and is causing the damage.
Well, you're gonna have what I think is probably going to be Ema. Probably you'll probably have Ema take Barrero's spot this week, and Ema. The thing that Barrero's done a lot better with this year, he's played more defensively. So DeJuan's probably gonna have to do a lot more defensive action this weekend versus DC. But I think you're gonna have a hell of a speed tandem on that left side with Ema and Barrero, Ema and DeJuan. I think really. A lot of the offense, it feels like this weekend's going to be created through those two.
I think also what we saw last week with the blueprint that worked against Nashville, we talked about it with Lori Lindsay, not trying to go over the top, not trying to force it up the middle, possession, 1-2 touch side to side. That's going to break down a defense that's not as strong in DC United as they are in Nashville. So that I would like to see more of what we saw last week on the field this week.
That was the thing that stuck out is that, offensively, like last year it was like dump and send. Like that Charlotte
doesn't work.
game,
This is not
sucks.
1983.
Yeah.
that Charlotte game, it
doesn't
felt
work.
like they were doing more of that, like a lot of that stuff that we saw in 2022. More possessive based. And again, to see them do it against a team like Nashville, was really impressive. And it goes back to what Gary Smith said about how well prepared New England was for them. So this one should be a layup, I think. This one should be an easy 3 points.
Oh,
We're on
There
camera
it
now.
is.
You guys are seeing it live.
There it
You
is.
did, yeah, that's true. Cursed Revs can now
Yep.
screen
Tommy
grab.
take.
I'm surprised the Curse Revs hasn't yet because you've had a few.
I'm going to have to create some type of graphic to throw on there, a Tommy take. Where
Well, you
like
have
alarms go off. I'm talking about like in studio too. Like we press a button, there's alarms going off. The Wampanoag Trail is packed with like sirens.
We had a special effect. This is a Tommy take. Didn't we have that somewhere?
We had it somewhere. We're
Yeah.
gonna have to locate that for our YouTube friends. Which, by the way, guys, thank you for those who have been watching the videos. We appreciate Lori sharing our video last week as well. We're at I think 30 subscribers now. Gonna keep hitting that subscribe button, keep checking it out. We're gonna continue to put out content for everybody watching. But it's been fun so far.
I did play a little action on the Revs in Nashville last weekend.
Oh, look at that!
I
We got a betting man.
I sat next to it, watching it live.
Oh, so you were in Massachusetts. So you were using some of the new sports books available
Yes,
over there.
I did. I figured, you know what? First time that we're at Gillette.
Let's just put the spoiler out there. Tommy did not do.
I did
well.
not make any money that night. No.
Tommy went over.
Yeah, we're not going to turn this into a whole bit, but I will say this: a personal rule of mine is I never bet on my favorite teams
Well, it's not necessarily
because it
my
makes it
favorite team.
doubly as painful if it go wrong.
It kind of felt like it was. I took the Revs money line.
Hold on, but I knew there was something different because I sit next to Tom in the press box every week, and he's a different guy. Like he's a different man.
He's on the edge of his seat.
So-
he's got the gamble shakes.
No, but but not normally. So that's why I sensed like a
Yeah.
different energy. But I'm like, oh, maybe like again,
New pre-workout?
Maybe he's like a little positive. Maybe he's like happier right now. I don't know. And so then I look over when he does this. When something happens, and it was Bobby Wood missed like a really close goal, and he goes, "I got Bobby Wood to score."
you got Bobby Wood.
Bobby Wood scored the first goal. It ended up being.
I was like, there
Gustavo.
it is. This is. I'm living it. I got family members that are just like this guy. But
Listen,
bet responsibly.
Bet responsibly always,
Yeah.
like everything in
I
life.
don't bet, so it was something different for the weekend.
It's fun.
Tell-
Listen, betting
you
can be fun.
You know when you're in a car and like somebody brakes quick or something, and you do one of these?
Yeah.
That was Tom. That's what happened there.
So last weekend, Gamble Cave in my house was live. Okay, we were betting all that types of stuff. Sports books were live in Massachusetts. I live in Massachusetts.
Do you have a name yet? Or is it still just Gamble
It's
Cave?
where we're going to
Workshopping?
Gamble Cave workshopping
Okay.
it. For now, it's a Gamble Cave. But I will say this: it is fun in a responsible manner. I could have $2 on a game. It's just having some skin in the game makes things fun and interesting.
Right, it makes it different.
I wish I could have saw the gamble anxiety out of you because I know me. Like I'm sitting on my feet. I'm walking back and forth, and it's literally for like the price of a soda out of a machine somewhere. It's just fun.
Simple $20. I didn't bet the mortgage on Revs-Nasvhille on March 17th.
You could have fooled me.
But
Bobby Wood to score first probably had pretty good odds.
It was like
plus 500 maybe.
I think it was plus 500. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a wild guess.
No, not plus. I think
why did you know that so quick?
Just
off the
throwing
top?
it in. Just saying, it's probably around that.
Look at what's going on here. Where am I sitting?
But that's fun. And
plus it also follows up with what we were talking about last week. I'm like, with the people at Forbes magazine kvetching about Bruce not giving transparent injury reports. I figured, let's just throw a little
what it's like to be on that side of it. You did some what do they call that? Investigative reporting.
Investigative reporting. Yes.
Yeah. So this is like when Tyra Banks dressed up in like an oversized suit, we'll call it, and then pretended to be like, wow, this scrutiny that I've been feeling. So that's you feel like
undercover boss vibes.
There you go.
Yeah. So
you want to talk about the night before the Revs game, or are we good?
No, God, I was not. I was not. No,
we didn't get a text from him. That's all you need to know. We should have
too much pre-workout.
No,
yeah.
no, not enough food.
Oh,
Henny Tom came out.
Oh, I didn't know if we were going to say it. I didn't know if we were going to say it.
We'll call it a cognac Tom because there's no sponsors.
Yeah,
bleep that, Mike.
Okay. MLS 360's Kaylyn Kyle is coming up next on the show. So we'll talk about everything that's been happening with that studio show this year. It's been a lot of fun watching those guys on TV.
Let's talk about Arsenal quick, though. I mean, that was a big story coming out of MLS this week.
Arsenal getting the hosting the or coming to America for the MLS All-Star game.
Yeah.
Matt Turner did a quick little video explaining MLS to the Arsenal players because they're not very familiar with it. I thought it was pretty good. I think Matt Turner's got a future in acting.
Matt Turner, Arsenal keeper, has been tapped as our new MLS Education Director to prep the boys for the 2023 MLS All-Star Game.
Welcome back to MLS 101, Week 5. Come on, Eddie. I know it's your thing, but, focus.
All right, mate.
So you guys know that MLS supporters, they go pretty hard and they're extremely creative. They use TIFOs often before games, like this one here in Austin. And then, of course, this one, which means something pretty special to me.
Is that supposed to be you, bro? The beard looks a bit better in the pictures than it does in real life, but just my opinion.
Let's move on to Player of the Week.
Henry.
Gabby, you say that every week.
Yeah, so
that's solid. Yeah, got a little good comedic timing there.
We've talked about this on this show about videos like that to try to get people engaged. So that was good.
Well, it also is just remarkable to see the superstar he's become. Like, he's going to be the face of a network one day. You just see it.
He's
got the TV vibes.
He presents very well. He's also reminds me of another goalkeeping legend in the United States, Tim Howard.
He has more personality than Tim Howard.
I think they're
by a mile.
Whoa.
I don't know about it. I wouldn't say by a mile.
I mean Tim Howard's been on TV for like a decade.
Yeah, he's been on TV forever, and he also was one of the first big-name keepers to go overseas and really make a name for himself over there.
From America that went over and did what Tim Howard
Casey
did?
Keller went over there, right? He played it. He was. I mean,
Tim Howard.
when we're talking about a
Manchester
short
United.
list
What
of
did
players,
Tim Howard do to you? Why are you so quick?
I'm not. I'm just saying in terms of charisma, I think Matt Turner's got a hell of a lot more charisma. It's just me,
I mean, I wouldn't go that far. I think he's charismatic, and I think he'll do very well in his life. In his post-playing career, this was not supposed to be a Tim Howard diss.
You think I'm dissing everybody today? What is this? The Tommy disses everybody show?
Watch it
you
back.
Tell me.
Watch it. You're going to be able to watch it back.
What's going on? He's got
today?
more charisma than him. If I had to build my studio crew, Matt Turner would be in it. If I had to choose between Matt and Tim, sorry.
Wow.
Well, that's good for you.
Okay.
All right, so we're wrapping up the show right here. It is New England Soccer Weekly. Appreciate Kaylyn Carr.
We can't take him anywhere.
I just didn't.
We just can't.
Tom, I do a radio show every day.
This is a tough week for Tom.
With a woman in her, we'll call it early 30s, we'll call it mid-30s. If I ever called her ma'am, she would kick me out of the room. And that's putting it lightly.
Watch the show back too. I mean, I was silent. You had a cringe look on your face. It was tough.
I think I bit my lip.
Yeah,
I bit my lip because I was a little nervous for you in that moment. But it's okay. You bounce back.
The demographic I work with is
Right.
60 plus.
Sure.
Okay,
if you're gonna go that route, if you're trying to be proper, it's always
trying
nice.
to be polite. Just trying to be
Or
polite.
Or just proper
pronoun, or just name.
Proper pronouns. Just
Yeah.
her name. Hey, Kaylyn. Thanks for joining us.
Have you interviewed anyone before?
So it seems like the World Cup 2026 final is in a little bit of a predicament.
Oh.
So apparently SoFi Stadium has been told by FIFA that the pitch would be too narrow to host the World Cup final. And now
at Yankee Stadium too, or no?
And now the two alternatives would be Dallas and MetLife Stadium. So this is pretty much confirmed it in my mind that the World Cup final is probably going to be in Dallas.
Yeah. I mean, it may, not speaking as a Cowboys fan, just speaking as somebody who understands the culture you're trying to advertise.
Well, that's the biggest stadium, right?
Not even culture. I mean, New York, it's a melting pot.
And
It's more about the stadium.
It's indoors, right?
It's
You
indoors.
can contain the
It's a
environment.
wider
You
stadium.
can pack
100,000 people.
100,000 people in there.
No brainer.
It's it's in an area where it's a big metropolitan, but it also has its suburban areas. If you want to, have people come in from out of
There's
town.
nothing in between Arlington, Texas, and Dallas.
I've been there, and there is nothing. It's about 30 minutes outside the city, and
It's like driving to Foxborough.
Worse, more desolate, for
Yes.
sure. Trust me, I've been there. There was literally one spot to go to before any type of events at AT&T Stadium, and it is called Big Texas Live, and it's literally just a mall of bars and restaurants. So that's like a mall size.
Well, because the stadium is the attraction. That's
exactly.
what you're going
and
there
it's
for.
in the middle of nowhere,
Yeah.
so you can't really, unless you build a whole town around it. It's not. But to the main point, it makes sense for them to host there. It is a spectacle. It can fit the most people.
But to your point, New York is the better option because of the city being where it is.
Yeah, but MetLife sucks.
I agree. MetLife is a
How do you really
vapid,
feel?
soulless stadium. And this is coming from a Giants fan. MetLife is the worst constructed stadium of all time.
I've been there to 2 WrestleManias. Why is there a wind? Why is there a hole for the wind?
The wind tunnel. It's I guess
Why do they
it's
do that?
nostalgia. Nostalgia
Is it?
because back in the original Giants stadium had wind tunnels.
It makes me
That's why they used
tunnelly upset.
That's why Pat Summerall would say the
You proud
swirling
of yourself
winds.
on that one?
I didn't know.
You liked
I
it?
hope that
I
we
just kept on going.
Thank
Yeah,
you, Tom.
okay.
Swirling winds of Giants Stadium.
I went there for WrestleMania. I've been there for WrestleMania twice. The first time I was in the press box, not to brag. Second time was not in the
You were
press
pressed
box.
for WrestleMania for one of the Manias?
Yeah, I was. Yes. Well, kind of. I was interning.
It was
but
29, right?
Got to go. Yeah, 29.
Did you set this up beforehand? You didn't just walk on the floor and expect to be taken care of as a member of the media?
At that time, no.
I knew you were
didn't.
I knew you were going to get there.
No, that was great. That was still
Okay.
a boss. You did that. It was a boss
I
move,
did
though.
that.
Rough and
Yeah,
rowdy.
Rough and rowdy. Barstool.
Listen, I told you I was envious of that entrance. That was one of the greatest things you've done in my life.
Walking up with a pea coach stride,
Just down
strutting.
the ramp as if he was fighting in the main event. It was the best.
Bobby Heenan-esque.
But yeah, World Cup final makes sense being in Dallas. I'm excited to see. We're a couple years away, obviously, but to see.
Gillette's might have a few more games because now that you have an expanded field, for some reason, WBZ did a random story on this the other day. It was like a anchor read
Why not?
talking about how because of the expanded format, it looks like Gillette Stadium could see more games, which is going to be great.
Love
Great.
that.
Yes.
That stadium,
More.
by the way,
Doesn't matter who's
what do you-
playing. I'm
what do you
there.
what do you think of the way the stadium looks, Gillette?
Pretty cool.
No, but with the new construction.
I think it looks pretty cool.
Well, we don't even know what it's gonna. I can't wait till the full video
it's
board's
different.
there. That once
It's very different.
Once the full video board's there, I think then I'll have a better answer for you.
Yes, just because I don't know if I'm crazy about the new premium seats. I'll be honest. I don't know if I like what they're doing in that corner.
Well, you haven't seen them yet.
You haven't. I don't. But it's like.
There's nothing
Doesn't
there.
like the idea of
You have an opinion on something that's not there.
But it kind of feels like it's coming from somebody where they really took the soul out of Madison Square Garden. I hope you're not outpricing your fans because I do think there is a limit to how many premium seats you could have. You have all the box suites, and then you have the far end zone premium section. I get it; it's part of today's culture.
Got to level up. That's what happens.
But the stadium is now 22 years old. Or
I get
whatever
it. And
is,
they're not
so
moving.
it's-
You're not going to knock down
Yeah.
Gillette, so you're only going to make it
Unless you
improvements
throw a
to it at
roof
this
on it.
point.
If
That's
you haven't
not
been there
It's
yet,
never
though,
gonna happen,
and
but-
you see the empty, where the empty video board's going to be, that's why I'm going to reserve it.
I think
'cause
it's going to look
It's
pretty
going to
cool.
look
I think the
so.
video board
I
will
think it's
look
going to look so.
But that's
sick.
different than what they're doing in the corner with the new premium seats
Well,
that
that's
they're building
all
in
that's
that lower
all
end.
that's there
Yeah,
now
but-
is dirt. That's why I don't.
And all the
until I
top
see it.
markets have that option. Like you go to New York, you go to Dallas,
Atlanta.
you go to Atlanta. This is the experience that they're trying to sell, and it makes sense. Like, why would you be? I think we're past the time now where arenas and stadiums should live off of that nostalgia factor. Like there's certain things I guess you can keep, but at the end of the day, we're an experience culture.
It's not like there's anything nostalgic about Gillette. Let's be honest. I mean, that's probably the most cookie cutter stadium around. And just ask the players. I mean, the players have written terrible reviews about Gillette. Gillette's got a special
on
place
Amazon.
in my heart
Where are they writing these reviews?
Google.
No, there was a player survey. There was a player survey that ranked Gillette as the worst in the NFL, just for facilities and all that stuff. I'm just personally, I'm always going to love Gillette, but in terms of what it is as a stadium and what it is what they're trying to make it, I just hope you don't outprice those common fans because premium seats come with a premium price tag, and there's only certain classes of people that can afford that. So yeah, I want to tax the 1%ers and every other.
This is not your morning show. All right?
Wrong show.
Wrong show.
Pivot back to soccer.
Although our audience would be happy with me saying that. By the way, Canada. Kaylyn, Kyle.
Wait a second. What kind of a segue is that? What are we doing here? Are you stretching that much? How much time do we have?
By the way, Canada?
Yeah.
I just wanted to
said no one ever.
And end the show with this. Better national anthem than the U.S.
Okay.
Bruce.
Great. Thank you.